Let's do it, yeah? Yeah, so like Rachel said, we're gonna talk about how to demystify things like wrangling, ambiguity, and how to grow your influence. And we're also gonna talk about it in a way that you can do this and stay true to yourself and not sacrifice your values or lose your soul. So before we jump in, a little bit about me. I'm Shannon. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Hello, everyone out on the live stream. If your internet's being a little bit funky, I'm a half white, half Chinese woman, really short hair and a bob, and I'm wearing some really fabulous hot pink lipstick. Really helps with getting the energy going. And Sarah gave me such a great segue. If you want to know a little bit about me outside of work, this is my family. Jaden is my daughter, Ryland is my son, Zelda and Link respectively. I'm Waldo, you found me, good job. Sometimes my husband moonlights as Bob Ross, other times he makes me really nice slide decks. And then Rachel, I have my gratuitous pet picture, that is Ginger Snap, dressed up as a unicorn. I also run a meetup at home in the United States called RVA Content Strategy. We are 12 years young and going, so it's really incredible to just see that still going and have that community there. And then as far as my career and who I am and the worky bits, I've had a really windy, twisty path like so many of us do. Started in web copywriting, did social media marketing, and then did a detour in through instructional and training design, and then found my way into UX as a content designer and then a manager of both UX teams with multiple design disciplines reporting into me, as well as managing content design practices. And in my story, when I've been an individual contributor, when I've managed people, when I've worked at small companies, big companies, medium-sized companies, and as I've talked to my friends, my colleagues, as my mentees, I keep coming back to my relationship with this idea of leadership. And well, what the heck does it actually mean? Because way too often when I go to someone and say, oh yeah, how can I level up? They would just answer me in more buzzwords. And it started feeling a little bit like this. Is it gonna do it?
Oh, next step is to fold in the cheese.
What does that mean? What does fold in the cheese mean?
You fold it in.
I understand that, but how do you fold it? Do you fold it in half like a piece of paper and drop it in the pot, or what do you do?
David, I cannot show you everything.
Okay, well, can you show me one thing?
Here's what you do. You just fold it in.
Okay, I don't...
So, in this iconic scene from Schitt's Creek, David and Moira are trying to cook dinner for their family, and they reach a point in the recipe where David doesn't understand what the step fold in the cheese means. And Moira thinks she's explaining it to him by just saying it back to him. And so often with leadership concepts and thinking about how I'm showing up in my career, I had this moment of, well, what does it mean to navigate ambiguity? Well, how do I do that if I don't work at a certain company with a certain title, with a certain role? What does it mean that I'm an introvert? I know, I'm up on stage, right? But I'm an introvert, so I'm not the biggest voice in the room. I'm not the most outgoing person. I see people who are leaders in tech, and they don't stand for my values or what I believe in. How am I going to show up in all of that? So today, I say phooey to all that, and I present to you my own personal decoder ring on what it means to grow in your career and craft a path that is in tune with who you are. And this is over the course of, 15 some odd years, and these are things with respect to influence, ambiguity, and autonomy. These are concepts that showed up when I worked in really small companies, big companies, when I've managed teams, when I've been not managing teams, all the way from being a web copywriter and an instructional designer to now being in product and tech. So first, we're going to get into influence. And with what I like to do is I think of this across 3 dimensions. So execution and planning, impact and network, and finally teaching and change. And so with execution and planning, really taking that step back and getting into what does that mean IRL, it's about going from doing the work yourself ultimately to defining the work to be done and helping others to get that work done. So what might that look like? When I was a web copywriter, I used to write and add content at the end. Surprise, surprise, right? But as I learned and grew in my role, as I built relationships with other designers on my team, I moved up earlier into the process, and I started shaping the direction of the work through wireframing, through co-creating designs. As I've progressed in UX teams and going from being part of a project to leading a project to leading lots and lots of projects, I started encountering what it means to start to do the work through other people. So as I'm coaching and mentoring, as I'm giving feedback and design crits, I'm influencing and shaping the direction that our work is now going in. And then finally, when I think about this, it's going from this place of I had work assigned to me, I knew what the project assignments were, and then as I stepped up in my leadership roles, I started to be that person who was planning the work and determining what are the priorities, what will we do, what will we not do. So literally, quite literally, defining the work to be done. So now we'll move on to our network and our impact and this ripple effect, right, from going from your immediate kind of circle of people that you're working with, your day-to-day projects, and seeing where and how that kind of grows and expands into impacting more and kind of broader groups of projects, people, teams, or even processes. So what might this look like? I was writing website copy as a copywriter, ta-da. But eventually, as I learned more about the craft of writing and also the business of writing and the business of design, I moved into a spot where I was able to start influencing and changing how we were pricing our services at an agency that I worked at. It meant looking for opportunities and volunteering for projects where I could take my design and my content superpowers and apply those in new contexts with new people. So one design team that I was a part of, I helped to develop a mentorship playbook. And what did that look like? I got to structure, organize, and write some content for that. It can also look like taking your work and presenting it to other groups so that then they can remix it and use it in the context of their own day-to-days. In this particular project, I made a framework, it's in a spreadsheet, surprise, and I went on a little mini roadshow internally because one of our design leaders said, oh, actually there's a group who would really benefit from this way of thinking, could you show it to them? And then they talk to somebody else and so on and so on. There we go. So finally, teaching and change. This is probably something that's really, really near and dear to my heart. And so looking at going from being the practitioner and doing the work and being the content person to ultimately teaching others your ways, your methods, and ultimately driving change. And that might be in a company, in a project, it might be with a broader audience, but it really comes down to where and how you want to show up and kind of, what you're most excited about. So for me, in addition to making really fancy spreadsheets that people like to steal and borrow, I've also done talks about content testing at a local design meetup in Richmond, Virginia. I moved from mentoring just content designers to starting to mentor other designers at the companies where I worked. And I've even been able to have just the absolute luck and privilege of getting to teach rising designers, people who are going to come shape the future of the field, gotten a chance to get in front of them and talk about content and where and how that can show up in their practice. So we talked about influence. Let's get into navigating ambiguity. And going from moving and working in these really small, well-defined scopes to working within bigger scope that has a lot less definition, a lot fewer guardrails. And I really like to tell people that at the end of the day, when you're going and working through ambiguity, it's about creating clarity for yourself and creating clarity for others. And one example where I did that early in my career as a content designer, got to rewrite an existing reminder to tell people, can you please pay your credit card bill on time? Fast forward a few years, it's 2020, we're in the middle, or not in the middle, right at the beginning of the pandemic. We were launching brand new payment plans. We are in the middle of a situation that is changing hour by hour, minute by minute, day by day. And it would have been really easy to get really overwhelmed and go, oh my gosh, I am not an expert in these new payment plans. I don't know what's going to happen next with COVID. And what I had to do for myself and for my team was just take it chunk by chunk and make these really discrete, small steps toward progress. I didn't have all the answers. But as I learned more about, okay, so this payment plan works like this one works like that. Okay, we know something new about customer mindsets. We could add in new bits of knowledge as we kept going to keep making progress. As a design lead, I noticed that the teams that I was working with from all my different partner areas, everybody had their own research plan. And as we got into it, we started realizing, oh, that product manager over there and that product manager over there, they're researching the same stuff. It might be handy if we all kind of buddied up and worked together on it. So ultimately, something that we worked together to do was we created a shared roadmap. And again, it wasn't this comprehensive, exhaustive thing. I started in one simple place. I literally copied and pasted everybody's research plans into the same deck. And that was it. But it created that moment of clarity for myself and for the other folks on my team, because we all had that aha moment of, oh yeah, that's where the work is starting to overlap. And then we could go from there. It also, again, looked like going from being a web copywriter to ultimately influencing those business processes. I was not an expert in my job right out of the gate on running a business, running an agency, or how the heck we should price our services. I had to do it in small, discrete steps. Like first, oh, what are our competitors doing? What feedback are we getting from clients? And then went from there to actually influence and change that process. And so finally, getting into working autonomously and going from having a lot of supervision, getting a lot of really clear-cut direction and instruction, to working with high-level guidance, and finally being that person who's really self-directed or giving direction to others. And so when I was first an instructional designer, it was a career shift. I was real bad at it. It's okay. It's okay. It's a learning process. And so I used to get a lot of feedback on the training scripts that I was developing. And over time, as I grew those skills, I got less feedback. And then eventually, I started being the person who reviewed the work of others and gave them feedback and direction on their work. Similarly, when I was at the web agency, I used to shadow consultations. I did not say a word. I just sat there and wrote my notes. And then I started co-facilitating them with another designer. And then eventually, I took the training wheels off, and then I was running things by myself. It also means that as a manager or as a leader of people, I help create the conditions for others to be successful in. When I was a content design manager, I had noticed there was a growing need for an interest in a buddy program. And one of my direct reports and someone I was mentoring at the time, they also were starting to notice this, and they were like, oh yeah, we want to put this program together. And so they ultimately took that project and they ran with it. I met with them to give them feedback, give them direction, introduce them to other people to help make the case for this program and get interest and buy-in. But I took that step back to let them figure things out and then leaned in where and how I could if they needed me. And so ultimately, as you learn and grow in your career, it's really about this ripple effect where you're starting kind of like from influencing or affecting one person to many people. Or it's one project to multiple projects or multiple areas, and you're doing it with fewer and fewer instructions, and you're often becoming that person who's starting to give the guidance to other people and other teams. So there we go, that's the end of my talk. You got the magic formula. Everyone's gonna go update their LinkedIn profiles. Everyone's a leader now. We're all just gonna like skyrocket off the charts, right? No, it's not. It's not as easy as that. I wanna make sure to call out and talk about there are lots of other factors at play in growing your career. And I, least of all, I didn't get here alone. And so it's easy to get caught up in the LinkedIn headlines and, oh, look at their fancy profile, but first and foremost, there's a lot of factors at play, especially with respect to privilege and power dynamics and the way that I show up and present myself, who I love, my family, the roles, the levels, the titles I've held, the companies I've worked at. There have been times where I have been afforded different kinds of power and privilege relative to the other people around me, people in positions of power with privilege, have helped me in my path. And so this is just my call to all of us that as you're navigating situations and kind of acknowledging where and how this can show up for you, use that power for good. Use it to amplify others. Call out the bullshit. Help each other out. LinkedIn also doesn't tell you that all of this about career growth and influence, it's a team sport. You do not get here all by yourself just by pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. There are collaborators, mentors, sponsors, and allies who help you through each step of the process. I talked a lot about being a web copywriter who got to change processes at a little company, a little web agency, right? So my resume, my LinkedIn, it's this really neat and tidy, yep, there we go. I was like, oh, where's the animation? It's there. It's this really neat and tidy bullet point, right? I am super fancy. I implemented a content-first web design process and improved client communication, team efficiency, and the quality of deliverables. Don't I sound like a badass? I do. You know who else is a badass? All these people who helped me. I worked with 2 web designers, a graphic designer, and our boss's business coach to make the case for this change. I did not do it all by myself. Growing in your career, growing in my career, it all comes with a lot of failure too. Everybody in this plot of your career, you're gonna have twists and turns, and you're gonna go off track and come back on track. And in this story, our boss told us no. We went in, we loved our deck, we thought we were gonna get the yes, and he said no. He wasn't ready for the change. He was scared we were gonna lose clients. And ultimately, it was his business coach who heard us out and said, I got you. And through their sessions together, he ultimately helped to convince our boss, we need to change our pricing, we need to increase it, we need copywriting on every project. Leveling up, it also takes time. This presentation that Shannon in 2024 is giving right now, Shannon in 2012 couldn't have done this. Shannon, hell, in like 2020 would not be giving this same presentation with these same lessons learned. It is a cumulative effect. A lot of this takes time, and so it can be really easy to get caught up in and compare yourself to, oh, well, someone did it this fast or someone did it that fast. You gotta go on your path, at your speed, at the timing that is right for you. And what's gonna be right for me is gonna be different from what's right for Sarah, is gonna be different from what's right for Candy. And you just gotta embrace that and give yourself that grace. So, all right, we've been talking, got into the little like pep talk section, and now it's like, okay, Shannon, I'm gonna go back to work, I'm gonna go home. Well, what do I do with this? Where are these opportunities? And to that, I really encourage all of you to kind of take that step back and kind of think through and look at what's going on around you. Are you noticing that there's some kind of a pain point, like, oh gosh, like this documentation for this project, where is it? Let's just make a simple like Confluence page or put up a page in our intranet. Scaling your wins. I talked about having a spreadsheet that ultimately I went and showed other people, and then they took it and they retooled it and they repurposed it, and then I think at a community of practice meetup, a bunch of different teams like showed, oh yeah, here's how I used it. Oh, that's neat. I didn't think of it like this. Here's how I adapted it. Like I took that one thing that worked for me and I scaled it. You can also ask for insight from your manager, your skip level manager, from your mentors, from people who work at different companies from you. Where are they seeing opportunities? Where do those things line up with and play to your interests and passions and what energizes you? And finally, yeah, lean into the things that you are excited about. Because at the end of the day, your time and your energy are finite, and we all really need to focus on what matters most to you. I really like this clip from The Good Place. Eleanor, she really loves shrimp, like that is her thing. She leans into it, she loves it, she embraces it. So to that, I encourage all of us, find your shrimp. I am not gonna get up here and tell you, oh yeah, Mario, well actually no, our shrimp is community building. Shit, it's a bad example. But I'm not gonna force everyone to go out there and start a meetup. Nicole runs a podcast. You might be really happy with like, I just want to do lunch and learns at work, at my company, and it's just like me and 3 other people. And that is amazing. And those are all really fantastic opportunities to lean into, to learn and grow your leadership skills. Your work doesn't have to be big or loud to matter. I just sat up here for 20 minutes telling you about a thing I did at an itty bitty little 4-person company in Chester, Virginia. So now you've all heard of Chester, Virginia. But before that, nobody knew that story about me. I changed a process at a very small company, but it was still a really important and pivotal moment in my career and in my journey and in my learning. And I'll end us on a quote from my friend Jane Ruffino, who is a content designer and UX writer in Stockholm. And Jane says, you don't have to change all the minds, and you don't have to change them all overnight. Thank you.